Yo, we are back. Back in effect. I'm Dean Thomas. This is the Dean Thomas Show. I'm going to start off right off the bat talking about Daniel Cormier. You know why? Because he's the GOAT. I can't even dispute it. I can't even think of somebody else who I would consider the GOAT other than him. George St. Pierre. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about Daniel Cormier for a second. Dominant performance, masterful performance over Stipe Miocic. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know if I was saying that right when I did my breakdown of the fight. Let's talk about my breakdown of the fight. I almost knew that that would happen that way. It's easy to say I knew it would happen that way in hindsight, but on the inside, Daniel Cormier, when he gets in on the inside, heavyweights can't deal with him. He's too quick, he's too compact, he's too savvy on the inside for heavyweights to deal with him. He was able to hit Stipe with that right hand on the inside. I kind of knew that would happen. It's easy to say that in hindsight, but it's just what I was thinking. Again, Daniel Cormier, leading up to this fight, had opponents that would prepare him for this moment. Guys that were bigger punchers that could wrestle. When you think about Anthony Johnson's a bigger puncher than Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier was still able to handle him. He did it twice. Talk about Volkan Ozdemir, however you say it. He's a bigger puncher than Cormier. Cormier was still able to handle him. Cormier started his career heavyweight. He's used to bigger guys. He was able to get inside on Stipe and handle him. Got the knockout in the first round. With that being said, how can you dispute that Daniel Cormier is not the GOAT? Okay, John Jones, for sure. He lost to John Jones twice. However, John Jones, when you factor in the fact that he was popped twice for steroids, you got to take him out of the equation. You have to eliminate those fights from his career. You got to just you got to take him out. Now, even with the first fight when he lost, you got to take it out. John Jones was popped for steroids. You got to eliminate that from the equation. Let's talk about Cormier leading up to this. Heavyweight champ in Strikeforce. What probably would have been UFC heavyweight champ when he had the opportunity to, but he bowed out because his training partner, Cain Velasquez, was the champ, didn't want to fight him. Cormier probably could have won it then. Went down to light heavyweight, won the title in the most intriguing division the UFC has ever had, the light heavyweight division. Now moved up to heavyweight, won the title at heavyweight. Now let's talk about strength of opposition. Prior to this fight, we were talking about Stipe Miocic as being one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He had the record for title defenses. Wasn't that many, but he still had it. Stipe Miocic was a great heavyweight champion. Daniel Cormier won that title from him. Now when we talk about George St. Pierre as possibly being the GOAT, yes, he holds the record for welterweight title defenses. Yes, he moved up in weight to fight the middleweight title the title holder at the time, and Michael Bisping. But think of it this way: Michael Bisping was never considered, he wasn't even considered a great champion at middleweight. He was the champion, but everybody considered that a fluke, and he kind of talked his way into that position. He wasn't even, like, if you were to take the ranking at the time, he wasn't even a top 5 middleweight at the time he was champion. He matched up well against George St. Pierre matched up well against him. He won the title from him. So yes, George St. Pierre was a two-division title holder, but no, him beating Michael Bisping does not compare to Daniel Cormier beating Stipe Miocic. I'm sorry, it just doesn't compare. Stipe Miocic was a greater heavyweight champion than Michael Bisping was a middleweight champion. So Daniel Cormier winning that against him and being the light heavyweight champion of the world is, to me, far more impressive than anything that George St. Pierre has done. Which gives me reason to say Daniel Cormier is the GOAT. I can't find another person who I would take that from. Conor McGregor? Absolutely not. He's never defended his title once. Conor McGregor has strategically placed himself in positions to get the farthest he can get in a short amount of time. Yes, he might be the smartest and most strategic fighter we've seen, but he's not the GOAT by no stretch of the imagination. Daniel Cormier earns that right to say he's the GOAT today. Unfortunately, because Max Holloway wasn't able to fight, I don't have anything to say about that other than I hope Max Holloway gets healthy. I hope he gets better. I hope this isn't the last we've seen of him, because he is a great champion. He is a great fighter, and I think that he could do a lot more. I think he's a young fighter. However, the fact that he's having issues with his health could derail his career. We don't know yet, so that's yet to be determined. I would have loved to seen him fight Brian Ortega. Watching Brian Ortega work out is as impressive as I've ever seen a person work out when it comes to his grappling game. He's smooth, he's slick, he's strong, he's big, he's powerful. I would love to see that fight. And if Max Holloway, if he's out for a while, I hope Brian Ortega gets a chance to fight for an interim title. Now, this is one rare time that I think an interim title is worthy, because Max Holloway is having issues, and who knows what his timeline is on when he's going to come back. But hopefully Brian Ortega gets a chance, and hopefully soon gets the chance to showcase his ability and skill. Now, with that being said, let's move this thing along. Francis Ngannou. Dana White went on record and said that he believes Francis Ngannou's ego got in the way of his performance. I beg to differ. I think it's plain and simple. As simple as this. Francis Ngannou has been exposed. He's been exposed as, I don't want to say, it's a bit premature to call him a fraud, but he's been exposed. He is not what we thought he was. Yes, is he dangerous? Is he a big puncher? If you stand in front of him, could he knock your head off? Yes, he could. However, he's been exposed as not a great fighter. He's not a great fighter. Could he be? I don't know. He may have to change something in his training. But based on what we saw against Stipe Miocic, based on what we saw against Derek Lewis, which I believe was a very winnable fight for him, had he went back and did his homework off of the loss against Stipe Miocic, that's a very winnable fight for him. But we've seen he's not able to adjust. He's not able to adapt. And he's been exposed. Will he be able to come back? I don't know. But it's a sign that says, hey, listen, he was ruined by that Stipe Miocic fight. Up until this point, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen after this fight? But that loss to Stipe took something out of him. And a great fighter, even a good fighter, will go back, review what happened, what went wrong, figure out what he needed to do and make adjustments. He came out and did absolutely nothing, which leads me to believe that he may not be able to bounce back. I don't know. But he's been exposed. He's not who we thought he was. He's not that great. He's dangerous, but he's not that great. He's got a lot of work to do in the gym. Derek Lewis, obviously respected, regardless of the output of Francis Ngannou. Derek Lewis still respected the power and the ability. I don't know if it was necessarily his back issues, but I think it was he more so respected the power of Ngannou and didn't want to, get too reckless and take too many chances. But he got the job done and won that fight. I didn't think he'd be able to pull it off, but Francis Ngannou just showed me that you can't rely on him, you can't trust him, and he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to be considered a heavyweight contender. Because I think at this point right now, there's a lot of heavyweights licking their chops to fight him right now and go, man, I can't believe he's this guy when we thought he was this guy. There's a lot of guys right now that I can think of that are hoping to get a fight against him to work their way up and use him as a stepping stone. So Francis, if you out there, listen, go back and do your homework. You got a lot of skills, you got a lot of attributes, but you don't have this up here. And fighting is 90% this, homie. All in all, UFC 226 saw a lot of great things. I thought it was a great show for everybody. Everybody benefited from it. When you think about it, Daniel Cormier cemented himself, in my opinion, as the GOAT. We saw Brock Lesnar come out stage, put on some theatrics. For people who are into that, you got what you wanted out of that. It makes no sense, and it doesn't really apply to MMA in any way. But you know what? The people who are buying this, the fans, if they like that and appreciate that, then come on, let him do it. You know what I'm saying? In fact, like if he does get a title shot against Daniel Cormier, essentially that's easy money. That's easy money for Daniel Cormier. It's really easy money for Brock Lesnar as well. Brock Lesnar will come out and fight, get beat up, make a couple million. That's easy money for him. And I'm sure he doesn't care about his reputation or his ego. You know what I'm saying? Who cares? He'll make a couple million and get beat up. Daniel Cormier get a title defense as heavyweight. Right off into the sunset, make a couple million, right off into the sunset. So let Brock Lesnar come in and do his WWE theatrics. Let Daniel Cormier have some fun with this. Let him get that easy payday. Let him make his money. We also saw some breakout stars. I think Paulo Castro, Bordanchinha is what they call him in Brazil. You know, I think he could be one of the next Brazilian big things. I mean, he's a big puncher. He could box. He's going to be a fan favorite. The ladies love him. I think that he could be a big star in the UFC, especially Brazil gets behind him. He could be a big star in the UFC. Friday night, the night before, this was, and I'm going to just kind of jump back to this one, we saw Israel, man, I don't even, Adesanya, I hope that's how you say his name. I'm really bad with names, and I don't have nobody here to correct me. But we saw him bust up Brad Tavares. So, you know, he's another big star that emerged over the weekend. He wasn't in 226, but he emerged over the weekend. So we saw a lot of good things happen this week. One thing that I saw happen this weekend that I wasn't all that impressed with was, what was her name? Emily Whitmire, when she clowned on Vinny Magalhaes. You know, I mean, that's kind of petty. You know what I'm saying? I mean, fighters are so emotional, and this is something that you fans don't know about, but fighters are extremely emotional, and, you know, they portray, or they are, like, when they get in the cage, they're extremely tough, and they're hard, and they fight, and they, you know, get punched around for a living, but emotionally just weak and feeble. I mean, you know, she went off on this guy in front of everybody, and he's just like, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, it's kind of petty to do that. So, I mean, I don't want to harp on that, but I thought that was a bit petty. What else did we see this weekend, UFC 226? I'm sorry I didn't watch the rest of the tough finale. It's something that I didn't get my hands on that. But UFC 226 was a great event. You know, unfortunately, I wish we got a chance to see Max Holloway and Brian Ortega scrap, because I think that those two match up against each other so well, and hopefully that does happen in the future. So now the last thing I want to talk about, totally unrelated to the fights this past weekend or anything else, and this is a gem for all aspiring MMA fighters on the way up. You know, I've been involved in MMA since way before it's called MMA. In 1995 is when I first got involved in it. So I've seen it grow, and I've seen it happen, and I've experienced it from every angle, from fighter to coach to teacher, gym owner, promoted fights, grappling tournaments. I've done it all. Managed fighters. I've done it all. And one thing that's consistent with a lot of fighters, that a consistent mentality that a lot of fighters have, is that they go, I can't get fights. Nobody will fight me. I can't get fights. Now understand this. As a fighter, if you're coming up, you are essentially a dime a dozen to a promoter. Unfortunately, you are. Like, I know in your head and in your mind, you think that, you know, you train hard every day, you're doing all the right things, and you beat people up in the gym, and you just want to go out there and showcase your skills. I get that. I understand that. And in your head, you think that people should want to see you fight. But at the end of the day, promoters don't care about your fight career. They really don't. Some of them might tell you they do, and if they're your friend, they will. But a promoter don't care about your fight career. A promoter doesn't throw a show because he's like this fan of MMA, and he's willing to, like, let all his money go just so that fighters can have a good career and can, you know, spark up this interest in the MMA community. That's not what fight. Promoters are trying to make money too. Like, it turns into a job for them where they want to make money too. So if you're a fighter and you're reaching out to promoters, but you don't offer them anything other than the fact that you can fight, what good are you to them? You ain't no good to them. Promoters are looking for people that are going to bring fans into their arena and watch the fights. Anybody can do that, really. They can take a bum off the street, bring them in and fight. So you have to have something to offer a promoter other than the fact that you fight. And if you can't, that's the reason why you're not getting fights. It's not because people don't like you. It's not personal. It's not because people don't like you. It's because you have nothing to offer other than the fact that you're going to get in the cage and fight people. But guess what? So will a lot of other people. Other people that will bring in fans. So you have to think about that. What can you do? What can you do in the eyes of a promoter or of a marketing, or even your sponsors that will want them to invest in you? Because just throwing punches and kicks, now yes, there is a correlation between being a good fighter and people wanting to watch you. Like if you're a fighter that's, knocking everybody out, you 10-0 and you knocking everybody out, yes, people are going to want to watch you fight. So you'll probably at that point start getting fights, and promotions will invest in you and say, hey, let's get this guy on our card. He's going to bring in some fans. But if you're a fighter just coming up, nobody knows who you are, it's like getting a job. It's like getting any other job. Like if you're a plumber, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you're looking for work, there's no reason. They look at the phone book, hire a bunch of plumbers. Same thing with fighting. You a fighter, you looking for work? They just hire any fighter, really. Unless you can prove to them that you can either fill seats, put people in the game. You know what I'm saying? So think about that if you're a fighter. Don't take it personally if you can't get fights. You have to find ways to maximize your exposure as a fighter so that people will want to watch you fight. Because if people don't care either way if you fight or not, like if you can't tell a promoter, hey, listen, I'm going to put 200 people in your seats if you put me on the card, guess what? There's no real reason for them to put you on the card. Because you're essentially just going to be part of the reason why they lost money, because nobody bought tickets to watch you fight. Now, if you are putting 200 seats in filling up 200 people in these seats, guess what? I promise you, you won't have a problem finding fights anywhere if you can put 200 people in seats. So think about that. If you're a fighter coming up, think about how you can increase your visibility, your exposure, your marketability, because it's more than just throwing punches and kicks. Now listen, I'm Dean Thomas. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to catch y'all next week. I'm out. Peace.